What's up YouTube? It's Patrick. Thanks for checking out this channel. This channel is dedicated to helping you guys save money and learn all those adulting, boring financial skills that they don't teach you in school. So I'm talking about tricks to save on taxes, investment strategies, and really boring stuff that I've already sifted through and learned, and I'm now teaching you in less than 10 minutes. So today's lesson is about buying a house during a recession, everyone's favorite. So I'm gonna give you all the great tools and tips to make you guys get the best deal of the next 10 years. Today's lesson, we are going to be talking about buying a house. I'm a realtor in Beverly Hills, and I often am asked the same exact questions when it comes to buying a house. So this is going to be the quick, easy method to actually start the buying process. I'll make a series, you'll see the rest of it later. So first step you want to do when you buy a house is the pre-approval letter. It basically says that the bank or lender is willing to help you finance the property at this price point based on your income. So it's a really simple process. There's a lot of resources out there. You can go to Quicken Loans, you can go to Rocket Mortgage. If you have a relationship with the mortgage lender, that also works too. So in this example, I'm just using Rocket Mortgage just to give you guys an idea of what to expect. So your opening screen, it's going to show you a couple different options. You can home refinance, you can actually purchase your first home, or something else called a cash out refinance, which we'll talk about later. So right now we're just going to focus on the home purchase. And then the next thing they're going to ask you is the type of home you're looking for. So we have a single family, which is basically a 1-unit dwelling, multifamily, which is 1 to 4 units, condo, and a townhouse, right? The next question they're going to ask is about your type of residence. So investment properties often have a higher interest rate, so there's an advantage if you're actually living in the home. So that's an important point. They'll ask you again for the time frame of when you plan on purchasing the home, but for argument's sake, we can just say that there's no time frame, not very important. Just wanted to show you again what the process is here. They're asking whether or not this is going to be your first time purchasing a home. We'll say that it is. And then our credit score, the interest rates will depend basically on how good your credit is. But for right now, let's say that it's going to be a good credit score. Afterwards here, they ask us for our name. And then the last step here is they're going to ask you for your contact information. And it's important to create contact information because they're going to later ask you to create a account information for you to essentially be able to log in and finalize the process. But I just wanted to give you an idea of what to expect. Now, why is that so important? What ends up happening, especially here in Los Angeles, the very competitive places get swept up almost instantly. And the way you set yourself apart is by having a pre-approval letter that your realtor will submit in addition to your offer. That shows that you're serious, that shows that you've already gone through the process, and it's like a step up. That's always the first step you want to do. The second thing I always tell people is look at the rental market. Now, people always get overly excited about properties, and I do too, so don't get me wrong. But people always get overly excited about a property, and they'll get distracted by, new fixtures, curtains, other buying incentives, and they may overlook a really critical element, which is how much it will rent for. Now, it seems weird that I'm telling people to look at the rental market even as they're buying, but the fact of the matter is, a lot of people don't end up living in the same house for the rest of their lives. If you end up outgrowing your house after 2 years, a great option for you is, 1, you can refinance the house and take out a second mortgage whereby you could use the equity you've already put into this house towards a down payment in another one, or 2, you can rent it out as a secondary property. Now, the first strategy I told you, I'll get into it more in a couple of later videos. But the point of the matter is the rental market is very important because if you buy a house that does not rent for as much as you think it should, or it does not rent for as much as you're paying on the mortgage every month, after these 2 years, you'll have no option but to sell. Now, if you sell because you're losing money on it every month, that creates more problems for you. And you have less options, and you might end up selling for less because you feel the financial pressure. So the second strategy I always tell people is to look at the rental market. Now, the next strategy I want to tell you guys about, which people always forget as well, is look at the HOA. A lot of condos and some houses in developments, and especially newer ones with community amenities like a pool or a gym, they will have a monthly association fee. Now, these association fees are generally not negotiable. Almost never negotiable, to be perfectly honest. Once you buy the house, you are also contracted into paying this association fee for the rest of your ownership. Now, why is that also important? If you end up changing this place as from a primary ownership to your rental property, for example, that often is the dividing line between whether this becomes a good investment or a bad investment. So let's take a look of how we find the actual HOA information. So I'm just using realtor.com. If we type in Los Angeles, it's just going to give us all the local options of houses that are available. So we're really looking for a condo right now. So if we click on this condo, for example, and we scroll down, the property details don't list any information about the HOA, right? So that is why we have to be a little bit more sneaky and figure out where it's going to be hidden. And you can find all the information you need where it says monthly payment. Right below here, it says HOA. And they use this to give you an idea of how much to pay, to expect to pay every month. Now, remember how I said this is a great tool to figure out your monthly expenses? Keep in mind the down payment does not factor in closing costs. Condo associations have gotten wiser and they've increased their association fee just to discourage people from renting them out. If the association fee is high, generally speaking, the rent will be higher than what the market is demanding and less people will be incentivized to renting it. That is the main idea of why it's such a big deal and why it's so important to actually research the association fee, because it is going to follow you for the lifetime of that property ownership, and it's the one thing you cannot negotiate, unlike the actual purchase price. So always keep that in mind when you're looking at properties. So you've done all the first 3 steps. Now we can decide, how am I going to pay for it? Well, luckily you have a couple of options these days. When our parents were young, bought their first homes, it was traditionally thought they had to put down 20% for conventional financing. Nowadays, not so much. A lot of banks are going to give you different interest rates based on different time lengths. So for example, you can get a different interest rate if you put down 20% versus if you put down 15%. Now, it'll also change your monthly payment as a result, because the lower the interest rate, the lower the monthly payment, right? But besides that, it helps you kind of see that you can get a house even if you don't have 20%. If you have 10% down, it's still very much reality. Even as low as 3%, some lenders, conventional lenders, will give financing for. The government also has a couple programs. One is called the FHA loan. That's often talked about, so I'll just give you a quick overview. So FHA loans are one of the most widely asked questions I receive. So one of the biggest myths about FHA loans is that it's just for first-time home buyers. It is not. You can use the FHA loans even if you've purchased a home before. In 2020, they recently changed the minimum credit score requirement. It used to be 580 to qualify for the 3.5% down payment. However, because of COVID, they changed the minimum credit score to 500. However, please keep in mind that you will have to put down 10% instead of the traditional 3.5% if your credit was slightly better. As I mentioned before, not all properties will qualify for FHA loans, but it is a great alternative if your credit isn't perfect. You can qualify to put down a down payment as little as 3.5%. Now, what does that mean? The 3.5% down payment does not include the closing costs, so also keep that in mind. So for example, if I buy a $100,000 house, it's going to be more than $3,500 to get the house in my name. You also have to pay the closing costs, which, as I mentioned before, is about 1 to 3%. The next thing to know is for VA loans, if you are in the military. Now, the VA loans are qualified for people if you've been in the military, active minimum of 90 days during wartime, or 181 during peacetime, or about 6 years in the National Reserve or National Guard. Definitely encourage you to check those out. But the benefit of the VA loan is that you can get a house for 0% down payment. Again, does not include closing costs, but it is a great tool for people who are in the military. The last piece of advice, should I pay all cash? Now let's just assume you are sitting on a big pile of cash and you just want to get rid of it, like it's just pissing you off having this much cash. Should you pay all cash? My advice, no. Why would you pay all cash when we have historically low interest rates? If you have that much cash lying around, buy a secondary property, buy a tertiary property. Really take advantage of the market, because the market is going down because we're having a recession. So you guys, thank you again for watching my video. Definitely like and subscribe. So Adulting Finance 101, we're gonna do a whole series about buying a house, and then we're gonna get into really fun stuff.